anywhere in the world. And we'd like to welcome our newest member of the MID group, MID Digital Solutions. And together, we are more than mobile.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's really great to see so many people in the room here, and hopefully lots of people online as well. As Sam said, we're going to be talking about Web 3.0 and the Metaverse, trying to debug the buzzwords. We won't be giving you any crypto investment advice, I'm afraid, so if you've come for that, you're at the wrong event. I've got a great panel here, so we're going to launch straight into it, get some quick intros done, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what we're doing. So, Claire, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Claire Westcott. I'm the Managing Director of Fresh Digital. I've been working in this space since the early 2000s, something I'm very, very passionate about. Digital, for me, is everything. I'm very passionate about it. But as with everything, it's evolving, and it's about being ahead of that curve and what it means for you and your business.
Super. And then on to Dapo.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dapo Ejushafe. I'm a software developer and an immersive solutions consultant. I'm also the founder of Space VR, which is an immersive solutions tech company specializing in creating interactive experiences using digital twins and 3D assets. So anything from 3D virtual tours to 3D virtual commerce, we do it all. We're trying to bridge the physical and the digital world and everything in between using immersive technology.
And finally, Vlad.
Finally, Vlad. My name is Vlad Andrei Porumb. I'm working at Alliance Manchester Business School, and I'm working with a team of very talented academics to bring technology, this amazing opportunity, to education as to align the needs, to align what education can provide with the needs of the industry.
Well, there we go. This is our amazing panel. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start with you, Vlad, if that's okay. Clearly, you work in the education space, and when we were discussing, the potential of the metaverse last week, you were talking about the potential opportunities both for education establishments, but also for students. So, could you just embellish on that a little bit and tell us what you think those opportunities look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we are dealing with a humongous opportunity when it comes to Web3 and to what the blockchain can provide. The university in general needs to accomplish two things. One, serve the industry, so train students for the needs of the industry, and also lead the industry through cutting-edge research. So now I think it's time to guide the attention of people, of decision makers throughout the industry, but also in the academic world, to produce, to fulfill these purposes like never before. Because there's been all kinds of debates in the media about the usefulness of education, how we can advance our products in universities, in business schools, as to serve the industry the best. And I think now with Web3, we're finally at that point where we can push towards advancing education in the right direction.
Super. And so those are the opportunities. Are there risks around this as well? Because let's be perfectly honest, students do occasionally cheat. There are things. Occasionally. Things like Google and many other resources that you can also tap into. So is there a risk that maybe that could happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is nothing that we can solve in 1 year or two. What we're talking about is an effort that will take decades to be accomplished. So, like we were discussing before, I think my 12-year-old niece is going to be perhaps the one to benefit from whatever we're doing. So it's a decade-long effort, but we're gonna, year after year after year, if we guide our efforts in the right direction, we can accomplish phenomenal things.
Excellent. And Claire, obviously you've got an interest in marketing, and I suppose maybe a question that a lot of businesses that will be here will be, how do I make Web 3.0? How do I make the metaverse work for me from a marketing, IP point of view? What's the opportunity there?
Well, the main thing we need to consider is that brands need to consider how they show up in the metaverse. So let's just go back to basics first. So we have Web 1.0, that was about search. It was run by businesses. You went there, you got information. Then we had Web 2.0. That was about social. That's about getting involved. You had the MySpaces, Facebook, Twitter. Everyone got to connect. But this is Web 3.0, same as the metaverse, in my opinion. And that is run through collaboration. That is when we're giving power to the people. And that means that businesses, especially from a branding perspective and how we move forward, we need to understand how we show up in that space. We need to understand how much control we want to give to future collaborators, to different individuals on how they use our brand. If it's okay, I'd love to give a great example of what's happened recently. So Nike, or however you want to pronounce it, they have recently gone and collaborated with different artists, and they're creating NFTs, so virtual sneakers that can be purchased. Some of them are going for $9,000. It's not even a real item in the real world, but it is a real item in the virtual world. Those lines are now becoming blurred. However, from a branding perspective, we've also got a case of the Birkin bag. Now, there was a piece of artwork that was sold. I think it sold for $23,000, where they used the Birkin brand and they made a baby Birkin inside the Birkin bag. This is how we need to really control how our brands are represented and how much control. And that comes down, most of us here, from the professional sector. So there's two different elements of this. From a contractual basis, do we have a look at how our contracts are structured and how our branding, our IP, our copyright, our trademarks are viewed in the future? Or do we look at how people actually buy our products and interact with them? And how do we make our brands more an immersive experience? Because that is the future, and that is where we're all heading. Having that immersive collaboration where actual people, consumers, are at the forefront, and businesses need to either interact or perhaps not be there.
Excellent, thank you very much. And just following up on that, is there potential risk as well with Web 3.0 and Metaverse in terms of protecting your brand and your identity? Because clearly at the moment we're paying other industries, other entities to do that for us. And once we get into this decentralized world, is there going to be a risk there that we start to lose control of that?
Absolutely, there is a risk. But one of the underlying factors here is blockchain, because that will give 100% ownership of any brand. So we can trace anything back to its ownership. So there's more of a pathway, so we can, brands in a way will have more control because we'll be able to trace back to where our copyright or our trademark has been breached. However, we still need to put those rules in place now and start thinking about how we want to be in this new environment. It is coming, we can't change it, but it's about how we show up.
Fabulous. And we mentioned the word blockchain, and we'll probably come back to that shortly, but that's fine, that's fine. Dapo, on to you then. So, I mean, for those of you that don't know, Dapo creates digital twins, in the virtual world. And I tell you what, I am really busy with work at the moment. So anybody that could create a digital twin for me that could do my work for me would be absolutely amazing. So, come on, Dapo, tell us all about, what the opportunity is in the metaverse in terms of what you're doing and how that feeds into business.
Excellent. Before we get into that, there's one important thing everyone needs to understand when it comes to the metaverse and Web3. I'm going to give you 2 words for each that you can utilize and just understand it in its totality. So when you think of the metaverse, immersive social. And when you think of Web3, digital ownership. So the reason those words are important is because in the grand scheme of things, the metaverse is supposed to be a virtual landscape in which you can have immersive social experiences that will be powered by blockchain technology via Web3. Right now, we have a variety of fragmented metaverses all with their own proprietary gamification, lands, IP, so forth. Meta has their Horizon Worlds, there's their Sandbox, there's the Decentraland, and they're all fragmented. The ideal metaverse is supposed to be interconnected, that you can hop from one to the other seamlessly. Same way you can go on the internet and go to any website, right? So the main three things that the metaverse of things, I like to call, converge on are these immersive social worlds that you have these experiences in. Then you have Web3 technology, which powers these experiences via digital ownership and gamification. And then you also have the most exciting part that I think the focus should be XR technology or immersive technology. So augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. Almost everyone here has probably interacted with a filter of some sort and probably had no idea that that's augmented reality. You are layering a digital effect on the real world. So this is where the focus and opportunity is for any business, because as of 2022, there are about 6.6 billion smartphone users, which accounts for 83% of the world population. Combine that with the pandemic, which validated a lot of different social behaviors in terms of online consumership, right? And the need for remote experiences and immersive experiences. And then also our conditioned use of QR codes. I don't know if any of you saw our stand out there, but we utilize QR codes to trigger an immersive experience right then and there in this real space, but you're getting more information in an innovative way. So when brands are able to combine these behaviors that have been solidified with these new emerging technologies, you start to see an interesting recipe that anyone can participate in terms of getting users to generate content for themselves, and also for these brands that will also build their social currency, solidify the brand-consumer relationship, but also give humans what they like best, which is 3D visual information. 30% of our cortex is dedicated to visual processing, 8% for hearing, and only 3% for touch. So the metaverse of things, using immersive technology, really is just bringing the natural experiences we're used to, and we're using these immersive technology to access and do it in these virtual worlds.
Amazing. And when we discussed this panel the other week, you coined a phrase which was the meta push, which I really liked. I totally latched onto that. And I suppose you gave us a bit of an overview of what the technology looks like, but do you think people, consumers and businesses really understand what these kind of buzzwords mean and how they interact with each other?
And yeah, I think that's the issue, is there's a lot of buzzwords. You're hearing about decentralization, democratization, interoperability, all these things that don't make sense to the end user. But when you start talking about, all right, this, whatever experience you like doing right now, imagine being able to do it in a virtual environment of your choosing with anyone you want, anywhere in the world, wearing whatever you want, and then you own that, and then you can also sell that digital item to anyone and collect royalties off it, which will be powered by the blockchain. So when you start bringing that value add, it makes a lot more sense. Because the reason we're all talking about the metaverse, the hype behind the metaverse is, as John said, the meta push, which is when Facebook changed their name to Meta and committed $10 billion to building this new internet paradigm. So everyone's thinking about it as just the next Facebook that's going to be, annoying requests from people you may not want to see, annoying relatives, but at the end of the day, it's not so much about these virtual worlds, but the technologies and systems that are powering them. And if the focus can shift to that, I think a lot more people will find it interesting. Yeah.
Great. And I mean, when Dapo was talking about this earlier on, Vlad and I were super excited about the metaverse and our avatars and what they'd look like in terms of being super buff, not having bed heads and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for us here, isn't there? But Vlad, again, when we talked the other week, you were talking about the fact that in our current space, in the current world at the moment, we have lots of people who are specialists in one topic. Classic example, I'm an accountant, and I'm a specialist in certain things. But you also coined this phrase about specialist generalists. So could you expand upon that, what you think that means for people in business moving forward over the next few years?
Absolutely. After having numerous contacts with representatives from the business environment, it becomes clearer and clearer that we cannot move forward with a prior example of creating a specialist's a purely specialist in marketing, a pure accountant, a pure, I don't know, management accountant, whatever. I'm in the accounting world, so it's easier for me to think of things like that. Now businesses need people that, the generalists, as I mentioned, someone that would be a great marketing specialist, but would also know accounting, would also be technical enough to understand the product. So this means a challenge for education. Now you need to respond to this demand from business, right? And create a specialist generalist. And I think this means that instead of focusing on simply those, bachelor, master cycles and then going back to zero, we need to focus on the specialist throughout their career. So the university needs to step up and try to construct these specialist generalists throughout their career. So now we shouldn't only think of degrees of 3 years, 2 years, and so on. And also from the part, because we were discussing about the metaverse and why it's inevitable. It's not, I feel that it's obvious that this is here to stay, because our society's model of development is through growth. We need growth. And the real world is limited, right? You only have one downtown in New York, one downtown in Manchester, and so on. And now, to connect what Dapo and Claire were saying, basically now you have almost infinite opportunity for growth, right? And basically you get to bring the content creators very close to their target audiences. So Web3 and blockchain, it's a revolution which is obvious. It's nothing. The only thing that we need to worry about, let's say, is when this is going to become a reality, and to address the dangers, potential dangers. So going further than our joke with our avatars that are going to be bodybuilders, I think we need to think long and hard, and for business and academia to have to get closer, because like this we can help each other quite a bit.
And just picking up on that point about education, though, I mean, our education system, certainly here in the UK and in other countries as well, is one of more and more targeted focus, isn't it? You go to school and you do maybe 10 and 12 GCSEs, and then you go into college and do A-levels, and a fewer number, go on to university, and you're concentrating on one topic. So how do we sort of fundamentally change that to make that work in a better way for us?
So now basically we need to fundamentally adjust our way of providing education, right? So we need to, in a way, make sure that the companies externalize their training functions to the universities, and universities are going to become a close partner, let's say, of companies, to make sure that they're guiding the employees in the right direction.
Yeah. Super. And Claire, I'm not going to leave you out anymore. So we talked about the fact that businesses need to be engaging now with the Metaverse, Web3, and everything else. And I just think, I'm thinking about our business at the moment. We're about to move offices in the next few months here in Manchester, and I know that other accountancy firms have already started to take space in the Metaverse. And I can only imagine what the kind of conversations around the boardroom look like when, one, we've got to convince a whole bunch of partners to spend money on moving physical presence, in a city or a town, but also then moving into a virtual space. So, what do businesses need to consider, and how do they kind of get on board with this?
Well, absolutely. So let's just take a little step back. Look at social media. 5-10 years ago, businesses would have just maybe done one tweet once a month, perhaps have, an apprentice looking after it. But now we have whole teams dedicated to it. It's just going to be the exact same experience, but in a virtual space. One of the things that we also need to look at is what products that we deliver. So we might have service-based, the majority of the people here within this room will have a service-based product. But how can we make that into a virtual offering? How can we actually deliver the same work that we do now, but instead of doing it on a one-to-one basis, you have one client, how can we do it on a one-to-many basis? Because that's where the future is. That is the exact same as the product. So let's go back to Nike, for example. They made a trainer they're able to sell, and they can make on that for many, many years. Can you have a look at your product base now and make it so it can be sold on a subscription basis, make sure it's accessible for years to come, do that service once, but deliver it at a lower cost point and be in the space for a much longer period of time.
Okay, and the accountant in me freaks out when you say lower cost point necessarily, because that sometimes means lower value. So is there an opportunity also to create value in the metaverse for businesses?
Oh, 100%, there's a lot, but again, I'm going to use another example. Look at the businesses that are surviving now. We've got Sports Direct, that sells very, very cheaply. Primark now owns Selfridges. It's the companies that are willing to make products more accessible, they can sell to more people. And whereas we have services now, we're given that bespoke one-to-one service. I'm not saying we move away from that, but there's an opportunity to make a more accessible service at a slightly lighter, smaller cost point that we can sell to millions. There's more value in that. And then from a value-led perspective, the individual, and another thing that we need to talk about is people still buy from people, whether it's going to be in the metaverse or whether it's going to be here in reality. Although those lines become, merged, people still buy from people. And that is where the extra value is, and that is where your business and businesses and futures are going to really move forward in the future.
Well, I'm glad you said that about people buy from people, because one of my friends is an accountant, works entirely in the crypto space, and he's been having meetings on the metaverse with potential customers, with his existing customers, and talking about what they're doing with their investments, with their NFTs and things. So it's absolutely something that he's capable of doing. I just wanted to move on then. We're talking about how businesses can interact with their customers, and obviously we're talking about that personal touch. Can people do this on the metaverse, but do we still need to interact with each other using things like crypto and NFTs, or can we still stick to good old fiat currencies that we're all familiar with? That's for all of you, so who wants to go first?
Well, if you don't mind, one fact that actually alarmed me, researching this recently for this panel, that in the UK, we're at 45% still in a cash society, whereas Sweden, only 2%. Now that is remarkable. Cash is going, unfortunately for some. I don't use it myself. It's always a little Monzo card, 100%. However, we need to prepare for the future. PayPal, in October 2020, they started allowing crypto on their space. Businesses, especially the accountancy firms, need to look at how we are going to accept payments in the future, how we are going to interact. It's expected within the next 5 years, that the UK will be a majority cashless society, and by 2030, that is the plan for us to be completely cashless. That's not long away. We're halfway through the year now, so that's 7.5 years. We need to start thinking about how we move forward and how we accept those payments.
Absolutely. It's going to be a long transition, because the thing right now, talking about specialist, generalists, is that the average person and consumer is going to have a wider skill set and knowledge set to interact with brands in the future. Like right now, if you're participating in the metaverse, a lot of them are backed by the blockchain, and they require you having a wallet to interact and buy and participate in what they're doing. So just to have a simple experience, you have to set up all these ancillary things, and for the average person, they're probably not going to do that unless they're enthusiasts. So it's the next generation really that's going to really benefit from this technology as it starts to solidify. 60% of metaverse users are Gen Z. Gen Z, 53% of them identify with their avatars more than themselves. So we're seeing this shift to the digitization of everything, and that having more value than the real world. But obviously, the majority of us still are based in the present world, still like our current systems, And over time, as the infrastructure develops, like we will start transitioning, but it's going to take a little while as the knowledge gap right now is very wide. And that's what scares people about the metaverse of things, is that they don't think they can understand it, therefore they don't think they can participate. So businesses that are participating in this new internet paradigm, the onus is on them to educate and streamline the pathway for anyone to participate and understand what this new future economy is going to be.
From my part, I can say that looking at history, whenever humankind has developed a technology to perform an action, it has never returned to the prior technology. So it's clear that the direction of development is clear. And going back to the point that you made regarding Meta, about the 10 billion investment and so on, perhaps it's not obvious, but I think that was the start of the race. So it's irrelevant if Meta is going to make it or not. That's irrelevant. What happened in that particular moment is that there was the Formula One flag, with the race is off to developing, to constructing the metaverse. It's going to take 3, 5, 10, 15 years. It doesn't matter. Now the attention of smart people around the world and teams, as Claire said, now we have teams actively working in education, in finance, in all types of industries are actively working. So a lot of brain power, a lot of resources are directed towards this aim. So we're off to a great start.
Super. And we did mention the buzzword about blockchain earlier on, and I just wanted to ask the panel quickly, and I'm conscious we've only got a few minutes left. So Sir Tim Berners-Lee, founder of the internet as we kind of know it, was at the a Next Web conference 2 weeks ago almost, and he said, blockchain's basically rubbish. We don't need blockchain for Web 3.0. So, here's a man who invented the internet saying blockchain is not necessary. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
I mean, anyone who creates any technology, they don't own how it's going to develop and how it's going to morph. The consumers and users will dictate the direction they want to take it in, right? So anything will start to evolve according to the needs of the people using it. So with blockchain, I particularly like it due to the infrastructure that it provides for interesting experiences. As I said, the digital ownership component and the gamification component is what particularly appeals to the next generation, and that all these assets that they're so heavily invested in using, they can also own, and that sense of ownership allows them to solidify why they're playing these games, why they're having these experiences, and it'll continue to push them to do so. So giving back ownership and the rights to creators and users online and doing it in a secure way. Yeah.
And from my point of view, I think if we just call it blockchain as we know it now, I think it still has to evolve because it's not accessible. Trust is still not 100% there, but it's more importantly that people don't understand it. However, moving forward, we have to use this technology, and it still has to evolve because Web 3.0, the metaverse, it relies on it. It's about openness, it's about trusting, and it's about decentralizing of information. This is what's going to give us the freedom to move forward.
Yeah. From my point of view, and I fully agree with you, I think as we're talking about decentralizing. I think the blockchain is key, is extremely important for us to redesign parts of our society, because basically when, as Dapo said, you have an environment, have a metaverse that's going to be heavily populated with users, right? It's going to have its own democracy, its own rule set, sets of regulations that are going to be established by whom? By the owners of that metaverse. So this is also an opportunity to create a next Earth, a new set of regulations that are decentralized, because as I mentioned earlier, you have only one downtown in Manchester, in New York, and so on. Well, you can also have one government, one set of rules. It's difficult to change rules, regulations on Earth, but in this type of environments that the blockchain offers, offers, you can do this. And I think it's wonderful.
Excellent. Well, we have 15 seconds left. So I was going to ask the question, why now? But we're definitely running out of time. But I would like to pitch that question back to you guys in the audience. There's a huge opportunity here. Technology is revolutionizing the way that business is done with consumers. So I think you really need to think about that. And please put your hands together to thank the panel.
Amazing. Thank you so much to all of our panel, and thanks to John for chairing it so wonderfully. Brilliant. Don't forget the questions board. Just go and scan the QR code. You can ask some questions into the panel. Each of our panel